Hi, thanks for checking out this video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about one of those topics that as a small business owner and entrepreneur caused me a lot of anxiety, a lot of sleepless nights, and it drove me crazy for many years. And it ultimately served as one of the things that actually caused my business to close down. So I'm going to be talking about the dangers of debt for your small business, and I'm going to start with the first one right now. The first one is that it has a severe impact on your cash flow, which is very interesting because the main reason why persons would want to get a loan or to finance their business is lack of cash flow. But what happens a lot of the time is that when you get a loan to solve your cash flow problems, in a few months you're actually back in the same position, except it's worse now because you owe that amount of money plus interest. So I need $100,000 to get by. I take a loan for $100,000. The impact to my business is more than 100. It's either 130 or 140 or 150, depending on the duration and the terms, that interest rate that I'm paying back on that loan. So that's the first thing. It severely impacts your cash flow. It's something that has almost like a compounding effect. So you need money to finance your business, you borrow money to finance it, and sometimes you have to borrow money to pay back the money that you borrowed to pay the debt that you had in the first place. And it can be like this compound effect. So you start up with a deficit of the original debt that has now just ballooned into something that is really hard to recover from. The second thing that I see is that it stifles the growth of your business. Now, naturally, if you're spending all of your available funds paying back debt, loans, whether personal or through the bank, it really stifles the growth of your business. So you may be selling more, but you're losing more on the other side, because for every dollar you make, you have to repay that loan first, because usually it's a monthly payment, and usually it's an amount that if you don't pay it on time, it incurs further interest, right? So if you're interested in the types of debt, let me know in the comments below and I can share those tips in another video, those types of debt in another video. But let me know if you'd be interested in seeing content in that regard. So when I mean that it stifles your growth, think about it this way. You may make just enough. If your business is at a break-even point, then introducing debt can pull you down from that break-even point. Now, a break-even is a term used if your expenses match your income. So if you make 100,000 and your expenses are 100,000, you've broken even because you're not making a profit or you're not losing. That's not a bad place to be. Most small businesses would love to break even, but debt can actually pull you down from that break-even line down into being, in the red pretty much. So the next part about it, the third one, and there are multiple layers to this one, is that you have to make compromises sometime when you take off debt. And when I say compromises, I mean, firstly, you may have to know, because you're under pressure, you're on the clock each month to repay that debt on time to prevent from spending late fees or incurring more debt. You see, okay, it's halfway through the month, you're like, okay, I have 10 days left, because usually you pay it on the 25th. You're like, okay, it's the 20th of the month, I don't have enough money yet. So what I had to do in the past is call friends, call family, try and pool money together to pay my obligation on the 25th, but then I had to now repay those persons I would have borrowed from to cover that original day. So it's almost like I never had cash. It would always be just, escaping me, and I did not know what to do. So the next thing is that, I just had to start making these, let's say that I said that I would not want to. What can happen sometimes is that the persons who you have to borrow from, you run the risk of compromising that relationship if you don't repay them on time. And that's a sort of danger, something I experienced personally. And I had some relationships that I, possibly fractured because I would have made a commitment to repay some funds. I may have repaid it, but it was late, or it was maybe late more than once. And so those are friendships and relationships that I had to work hard to repair because I didn't understand how important it was to be sure to honor my commitment. And that's one of the dangers that debt presents, because usually when you're in debt, you try to repay the person who is pressuring you the most, right? So the next thing that you have is this sort of just it makes you just compromise, in almost any way that you can think of, because sometimes your mind just goes to ways that may, be possibly gray areas that you would not want to go into, because you don't want that burden of not paying the debt on time, right? And I would have alluded to this. The final point I want to make is that being in debt can be extremely stressful. Stressful to you, the business owner, stressful to your family and friends who may have to see you. So let's say, for the first few years of my business, my wife saw what I went through in running my own business, in managing debt or trying to manage debt. And it was hard for her as well, so it can put stress on you, the business owner. It can stress your family. It can stress, your relationships, your lifestyle. It comes with a lot of sacrifice. And debt is just, crazy, because there are many, creative ways as a small business owner that you can get into debt and leverage debt. But if you don't manage it well, it can lead to a lot of stress. So those are the 4 things that I wanted to highlight in terms of the dangers of taking on debt. And I'm just going to recap them. So the impacts to your cash flow is 1. The stifling of your business growth is the second one. The third one is just the compromises that you have to make. And the 4th is just the stress that comes with it. So if you found value in this video, I'll ask you to leave it a like, share it with someone who could benefit. If you know someone who, is considering taking on debt, or you may think is taking on too much debt, have them take a look at this video and see if their perspective might actually change. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing, and thank you for watching.